Good morning, boys and girls. We're out here in the garden. We've got Millie here. She's looking to make an escape. Today we're going to be talking about a little bit more about moss, and we're going to be doing an art project that involves different types of mosses. Now, I've gone and I've bought mine from the craft store, but you can certainly harvest your own moss on a walk around a park, a forest, or a garden. Let me see where she is. I think she's hiding. Oh, you're hiding? I don't think she likes it too sunny. All right, come give the kids a boop and then you can go inside. Boop. So our story today is called The Curious Garden by Peter Brown. And this is one of my favorites. I always say that about every book, but I really do love this one. The Curious Garden. The Curious Garden. There was once a city without gardens or trees or greenery of any kind. Most people spent their time indoors. And as you can imagine, it was a very dreary place. However, there was one boy who loved being outside. Even on drizzly days, while everyone else stayed inside, you could always find Liam happily splashing through his neighborhood. It was on one such morning that Liam made several surprising discoveries. He was wandering around the old railway, as he did from time to time, when he stumbled upon a dark stairwell leading up to the tracks. The railway had stopped working ages ago, and since Liam always wanted to explore the tracks, there was only one thing for the curious boy to do. Liam ran up the stairs, pushed open the door, and stepped out onto the old railway. The first thing he saw was a lonely patch of color. Wildflowers and plants were the last things he had expected to find up there, but when he took a closer look, it became obvious. They needed a gardener. Liam may not have been a gardener, but he knew that he could help. So he returned to the railway the very next day and got to work. The flowers nearly drowned, and he had a few pruning problems, but the plants patiently waited while Liam found better ways of gardening. As the weeks rolled by, Liam began to feel like a real gardener, and the plants began to feel like a real garden. Right? See, look, he's figuring out he can't do too much water, so he turned his bucket into a watering can. And he can't cut too much off. He had to wait for the tree to grow a little. Most gardens will stay in one place, but this was no ordinary garden. With miles of open railway ahead of it, the garden was growing restless. It wanted to explore. The tough little weeds and mosses were the first to move. They popped up farther and farther down the tracks, and they were followed by the more delicate plants. Right? Look, here come the mosses. They usually come first. Over the next few months, Liam and the Curious Garden explored every corner of the railway. Look at that. Right, you can really see all those plants moving with just a little bit of help from Liam. It was his own private oasis. I wonder what he's wondering. After spending his spring and summer and autumn with the garden, Liam's time on the railway was finally interrupted by winter. Heavy blankets of snow fell on the city that season, and for the first time since he'd become a gardener, Liam could not visit his plants. Right? Everybody was sleeping in the winter. But rather than waste his winter worrying about his garden, Liam spent it preparing for spring. Right? So he's learning as much as he can. After 3 cold months, the snow finally began to melt, and Liam rolled his new gardening gear over to the railway. Winter had taken its toll on the garden. Uh-oh, they look all banged up again. But thanks to Liam's planning and his new handy tools and a little help from the sun, the plants soon awoke from their winter sleep. The garden had always wanted to explore the rest of the city, and that spring, it was finally ready to make its move. Once again, the tough little weeds and the mosses set out first. They popped up farther and farther from the railway and were closely followed by the more delicate plants. The garden was especially curious about old, forgotten things. A few plants even popped up where they didn't belong. Others mysteriously popped up all at once. Look at Liam's dropping plants off when people aren't looking. But the most surprising thing that was popping up were the new gardeners. Right now, even grown-ups want to make green spaces in the city. And they're using all their roofs and decks and forgotten spaces. And Liam led the way. And he's got all his friends helping now, too. Right? Everybody found beauty. Ways to bring beauty inside and all around just by letting plants do what it is that they want to do, which is to grow. Many years later, the entire city had blossomed. But of all the new gardens, Liam's favorite was where it had all began. And look, here he is as a grown-up dad with his family back in the curious garden. And now look at that city. Look how beautiful that is. All because of a little boy and his idea. And a little bit of moss. So today we are going to do a craft that uses moss. And as nice and as much as I love coming to sit outside in my garden, there are days when it really is either too hot or too rainy to enjoy it. And so I also like to do things where I bring the outside nature into my house, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So we'll clip in and we'll get started.
Scientists believe that mosses are one of the oldest plant species on Earth. While to the untrained eye, all moss might look the same, there are actually 20,000 different kinds of moss. Mosses are grouped into two families, one which grows by spreading out like a carpet, and one which grows upright. Some people may not like moss because it tends to grow wherever it likes, but moss has a lot of important jobs in the environment. It may act as a ground cover, which protects the roots of bigger plants. It may keep soil from eroding. It can be used in place of grass. It can serve as a nesting material or water source for wildlife. And most importantly, moss makes oxygen for animals to breathe. It is a pretty remarkable plant.
So I'm out here in the garden, and I'm going to make a little shadow box with some different mosses and lichens. Now these I ordered, well actually no, I didn't order these. These I picked up at the craft store, and they sell them in big bags. You can just ask a grown-up to take you to the craft store and you can get all of these mosses and lichens. But you don't have to. You can go to, you can go on a walk or a hike, and also as long as you don't take a lot of things from nature, you can certainly take a little sample home and go ahead and create with it. And if it's in your own yard or backyard, you can take as much as Mom and Dad tell you you can. Just be sure that whenever you're harvesting, you do it gently so you don't harm the plant, and also that you leave enough so that the plant can always make more. So I'm gonna, inside my house, I have 3 of these. They hang, you might have seen them when we used to walk in through the front door. Those were art pieces that I made because, I don't know, I felt like being a little creative. So instead of using paper and paint to make art, I decided to do a collage with mosses. So what you're going to do is you're first going to look at the shape of what you got. This is sort of reminding me of a treetop, sort of like a bushy canopy of a tree. And then I might need a tree trunk. So then I might make that go sort of down that way. And I always like to lay my collages out beforehand because you never really know what's going to inspire you. That one kind of looks like a cloud to me. And then maybe, I don't know, that look good there. So I'm going to lay it out in a little scene however I like, and maybe I'll make some little shrubs and bushes. And when I get it looking the way that I like it, I am going to take my white glue and glue it down. So this is one way you can do it, right? You could do it like a scene. So I've got some, like a hill with some bushes and a tall tree and a cloud. Or if you want to be more abstract, you could do it by color, and we can sort of put all the beiges, and then maybe we could do a stripe of this fluffy, and then maybe we'll do another stripe of this lichen with the white side up. And then maybe we'll do a stripe of lichen with the black side up. So you can really play with texture, you can play with color, you can play with shape. And so I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to keep this, but this is a more abstract where you're just sort of playing. This is obviously going to have to go down in that corner because I don't have a lot of that color. And then maybe we'll fill in. And so then this one is just sort of like a pattern, like when you play with pattern blocks. You don't really make a scene, you just sort of make a design. And you can do whatever you like. I'm going to take you in and show you the ones in my house, and they need to be repaired. So I'm going to use some of this moss to repair the ones, and I'll show you how we do that. So this might be just an abstract design based with color and texture. And so you can just go ahead and make your creation, and then I'll show you the ones that I made up close. Okay?